Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Infernus, and welcome back after a month to another comic book review. Now, yes, it has been a little bit since I've done one of these. School starting back up has taken up a lot of my time. Plus, my focus has been shifted away from this thanks to things like Skylanders and Undertale Yellow. But after all that, we're finally back for another comic book review. And and if you want to have an idea of how long it's taken for me to get to this video, the subject of this review has been out for almost a month. Yep, it's Echo's turn. And in general, I'd say that this is not one of Marvel's better shows, but it's also not one of their worst ones. I am glad I can actually say that now since this show officially made the Defender Saga canon. And I will say there are seasons from that universe that are worse than this, and there are even other Disney Plus shows that are worse than this. I'd say that the first Disney Plus show that we got last year was worse than this. So as this is a good show, but it definitely has its issues. Starting with the good, I'm actually going to start with something that's actually a bit of a double-edged sword, but of course my format kind of makes it to where I have to talk about the good part of it now and the not so good part of it later. So the first episode is a bit strange. It shows us, you know, Maya's childhood before, the injury that killed her mother and amputated her leg, or caused her leg to have to get amputated. And then it also shows her time working on, like, her starting out as an assassin for Kingpin. And and like I said earlier, there are reasons why this works and reasons why it wasn't such a good idea. The reason why it works, at least for me, is because it does give us an idea of Maya's relationship to these people from her hometown and her childhood, and it makes it very easy to get invested later on when she interacts with these characters again. It's very easy to get invested with these characters that we didn't know before the show aired, because it did a pretty decent job establishing her relationship with these people. And even the ones that aren't established, the show at least does a good job establishing them in the present day. Like Biscuits and Henry, I think the guy's name was. It's been a while since I've watched. It's literally been a month since I finished the show, so I'm just going off of my memory to the best of my ability here. And also, it is during this first episode that we get our only real taste of Daredevil. Unfortunately, his scene near the end of the show got cut, but I do understand it because of the massive creative overhaul that Born Again went under, which is probably one of the best decisions Marvel has made recently, if I'm being honest, just going by the set photos. So yeah, I'll talk about why the first episode wasn't exactly a good idea later, but for right now, I'm going to go over some of the other things I liked. For one, I actually really like the way they used Maya's disability. Not the leg per se, but more her hearing. She is deaf. She has to use ASL. But what I like about it is that in some scenes where there are meant to be big emotions, the big emotions, even if you're not invested in the characters, they're still, you know, the emotions are still able to come out because there's no dialogue. And because there's no dialogue, the score has more of a chance to shine. Which, by the way, did you know that they got the Breaking Bad guys to, compose the music for this movie? Not movie, show? Yeah, that was an interesting thing to learn. They didn't play the main theme nearly enough, which is disappointing, but hey, the music is still really good. And it's good enough to where, even with one of the critiques I'll make later, it still does a good job of bringing out the emotions because the music is that good. It's able to convey the proper emotions that you're supposed to be feeling at those moments. And all of this because our main character is deaf and can't hear. I just said the same thing twice. Another thing I liked, Kingpin is of course back as the main villain of the show, and he is very much the same Kingpin from Daredevil, and actually I'm pretty sure only Daredevil. I don't think he appeared in anything else. It's still that sort of caring negotiator who is also very brutal when he needs to be. Action-wise, he doesn't really get that much time to shine due to another problem that I'll talk about later. But the scenes that we get of him, it's very much the same character from the Netflix shows. Also, the TVMA rating definitely helped this show a bunch. Don't go into this expecting like brutal, gory action or like just anything explicit. The TVMA rating basically just allows for more blood, but really that's all I'm asking for here. Just some more brutal action with very evident, just more realistic blood, I'd say. So, yeah, I'd say the mature rating definitely helped. But as for the negatives, this is where I have to bring back the first episode. The problem with the first episode, and I guess the show in general, is that the show itself is only 5 episodes. I don't know where the 6th one went, or if there even was a 6th one to begin with. But if there was, then I don't know why they took it out, because I imagine if they had a 6th episode, they'd have more time to, flesh out the story and develop some of the characters. Which is weird, because that's the complaint that usually comes from shows that have 6 episodes. But here I am saying that a 6th episode actually would have helped this to feel less rushed, when the 6 episode shows are the ones that usually feel rushed. But of course, that problem persists here, because instead of 6 episodes, we have 5, and they spend the majority of the first one with backstory. They spend the majority of the first episode giving us backstory. It's very interesting backstory. It does a good job establishing the characters and their relationships to Maya, but it doesn't really help the rest of the show when we basically have 4 episodes to, for them to tell the story that they want to tell. Especially when, like with some other shows, the episodes get shorter as they go along. Why can't this just do what Loki Season 2 did and have all the episodes be the same length? Just have them all be 50 minutes. Instead, you have 50, 50, 40, 40, and then the last one's 30-something. It's 37, 36 minutes. I don't understand why that is. If you're going to have the runtime be that short, just make them all the same length. Another problem is that because of this, they don't really have a lot of time to explain Maya's powers. I get that she can basically get inside other people's heads. I understand that. I just don't understand what's with the glowy fists and what those do. Nor am I really entirely sure why Bonnie has them. I'm not even that's the one thing they forgot to establish, was that what's Bonnie's familial relationship to Maya? Is she her sister, her cousin? I don't know. Show doesn't really explain that, nor does it explain why she has the powers. And the last thing that I will say that I didn't really like in the show is that despite this being the Echo show, the Maya Lopez show, Maya Lopez is probably the character that got the least amount of development, which is weird, but because, again, she's the main character. But it feels like she didn't really change at all. There was no real change or development in her character. If anything, she's just the same character that she was in Hawkeye. Which I'll give the seasons that were worse than this at least a little bit of credit. At least there was a change in their characters. Or if they're if the character is if it's an old character, they at least showed them in a new light. Or if it's a new character, then they were properly introduced. Even with Jessica Jones Season 2, Iron Fist Season 1, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they at least do interesting things with those characters. Here, it feels like Maya is completely unchanged from her debut, which is a little disappointing because I was hoping to learn more about her outside of her Native American history, outside of her, her heritage, her ancestors, and all that. Don't get me wrong, it was very interesting to learn about that, but I kind of want to learn more about her as a character. And you see, this is why I say that really all the problems with the show do just boil down to the fact that this is 5 episodes. like there's not enough time for them to tell a fully complete story. They have to rush it like they always do. They don't explain Maya's powers fully, and they don't really get to develop Maya as a character. So that is unfortunately a pretty big issue with the show as a whole. But overall, like I said at the beginning, this is a pretty good show for what it is. You know, it does a good job establishing Maya's relationship with the other characters, and Kingpin is the same Kingpin that we've always known to love to hate. So, in general, considering that it's a pretty even balance of pros and cons, I'll go with a 3 out of 5 on this one. It's probably on the lower end of the 3 stars rating, but but by my standards, 3 out of 5 is still pretty good. Not a bad use of 5, not a bad use of your time, I'd say. But anyways, guys, that's going to be my review of Echo. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all the generic stuff. See you guys in the next video. Take care, and Godspeed.